The rain wouldn't stop that night. It poured over the city, washing the streets, tapping against windows, drowning out the sound of a world moving on. But inside Kim Sae-ron's apartment, everything had already stopped. Her phone buzzed over and over again, lighting up the dark room, calls she would never answer. Her mother. Her manager. A friend. Each call ringing longer, more desperate, until silence took over. On the table, a candle burned low, its weak flame barely holding on, just like her. And then there was the note. Smudged. Unreadable. Like it had been touched too many times, like someone had tried to wipe it away. Had she written it? Had she wanted to? Or had someone been here, watching, waiting, making sure she'd never get the chance? The door had been locked from the inside. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. Just her, alone, in a room that felt too quiet, too careful. The world would say she gave up. That she let the weight of everything finally crush her. But something wasn't right. Something felt off. Because Kim Sae-ron had plans. She had things she wanted to do. People she wanted to see. And yet, here she was, gone before morning, her story ending too soon. So what really happened that night? Was it grief? Was it regret? Or was someone making sure her story ended before she could tell it herself? Welcome to True Crime Stories videos. I welcome you, my viewers, and most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing you daily told and untold true crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. News of Kim Sae-ron's death spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed tragic end to a fallen star. Social media flooded with condolences, but just as quickly the whispers started. The scandals. The mistakes. The past that wouldn't let her go. Some called it inevitable. Others weren't so sure. Her mother refused to believe it. She wasn't like this, she told reporters, her voice breaking. She was trying. She wanted to live. Her agency scrambled to control the damage, but their statements felt cold, rehearsed. And then there was the journalist, the one who had spoken to Kim just days before. He had questions and the answers weren't adding up. The police wasted no time. Suicide. Case closed. But it was too neat, too fast. There were inconsistencies, small but enough to make people wonder. The toxicology report didn't match. The timeline felt off. And that note, the one found near her body. Why was it smeared? What had it said before the ink was blurred beyond recognition? Online, the public tore itself apart. Some blamed the industry, saying the pressure had finally broken her. Others dug deeper. Had someone been threatening her? Had she discovered something she wasn't supposed to? And if so, had she paid the price for it? One thing was clear, this wasn't just another tragic celebrity death. Someone, somewhere wanted Kim's story to disappear. The only question was, why? Kim Sae-ron was never just a face on the screen. She was more than the role she played, more than the headlines that defined her. Behind the cameras, behind the bright lights, there was a woman struggling, fighting not just to survive, but to be seen as more than her mistakes. The scandals from her past weighed on her every step. The DUI. The public shaming. It was never just a bad night. It became her label, something she couldn't shake no matter how hard she tried. And the more she tried to rebuild, the harder it seemed. Opportunities slipped away, the calls grew quieter, the job offers fewer. But she wasn't giving up. She had plans. She was going to make a comeback, reclaim what she lost. Her friends saw the fire in her eyes, but they also saw the cracks. Moments where the pressure would get to her. In private, she would say it, I feel like someone's watching me. Not the kind of paranoid talk you shrug off, but the kind that felt real, desperate. She spoke about it once, in a voice barely above a whisper, telling a friend how someone seemed to know everything about her. Her schedule, her whereabouts. She laughed it off, trying to convince herself it was just the stress. But deep down she knew. Something didn't feel right. Was it anxiety, her mind spiraling under the weight of it all? Or was it something darker, something sinister lurking just out of sight? Something, or someone, waiting for the right moment to strike? She wasn't sure, but she was terrified. The investigation seemed to hit a dead end, but then came the first twist. The toxicology report, a simple document, yet it shattered everything they thought they knew. The substances in her system didn't match what they expected. She wasn't known for taking anything like this, yet here they were, evidence of something hidden, something she hadn't shared with anyone. A cocktail of drugs that didn't make sense. Why hadn't anyone known? And then the second twist, security footage. A camera outside Kim's apartment complex, showing a shadowy figure entering just hours before her death. The face was blurred, unrecognizable, but the timing couldn't have been more damning. Someone had been there, someone who shouldn't have been. The authorities were quick to dismiss it, but those who knew better couldn't shake the feeling it wasn't a coincidence. Next, an anonymous account appeared on social media, a single post that would rattle everything. Kim was being blackmailed. I have proof. The message was brief, cryptic, and vanished before it could be traced. But the damage was done. Who was behind it? What did they know? Was this the key to unraveling everything? And just when it seemed like the case might slip through their fingers, a final twist hit. A conversation leaked. Between Kim and an unnamed entertainment executive, one that sent chills down everyone's spine. Kim had been planning to expose something dark, something dangerous. But before the truth could come to light, she was gone. What was she about to reveal? And who was willing to kill to make sure it stayed buried? As the investigation stretched on, more pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, each one darker than the last. Kim had been talking. She'd been in contact with a journalist, someone she trusted, someone she planned to tell everything to. A tell-all interview that would have shattered the image the world had of her. She'd been ready to expose the truth, but what truth? Then there was her former manager. The one who mysteriously resigned months before, just as Kim was trying to rebuild. When investigators tried to reach him, he refused to speak. His silence was deafening. He knew something. Everyone knew it, but no one could make him talk. The journalist, desperate to uncover the truth, found himself caught in the crosshairs. He was threatened. Warned to drop the case. You don't know what you're getting into, the message said. The pressure was mounting. Kim's death was starting to feel like a dangerous game. And the further they dug, the more people seemed to want to make it disappear. The police, under public pressure to close the case quickly, dismissed the new evidence. A rushed conclusion. A suicide. But the public wasn't buying it. Not anymore. Meanwhile, the internet had become its own battleground. Online sleuths, determined to get to the truth, started to connect dots. Old legal troubles, shady industry dealings, and a trail of unexplained deaths that followed young stars like Kim. Was it just coincidence? Or was there something darker lurking beneath it all? Questions piled up, each one more troubling than the last. Was this an accident? A suicide? Or was someone working to bury Kim's truth forever? Kim's apartment, once a symbol of her comeback, now felt like a haunting. Half-packed suitcases lay by the door as if she had been ready to leave. Ready to escape something. But what? Her clothes were folded neatly, her belongings untouched, like she had planned for a future she'd never get to see. The room felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen, waiting for her to make a move. Outside, the city of Seoul hummed beneath a dim skyline. Neon lights flickered in the rain, their glow masking the darkness creeping through the streets. It was a city full of secrets, a city that hid the truth beneath layers of glitter and gloss. No one ever looked too closely because they didn't want to see what lay underneath. At Kim's funeral, the mourners were there, but their grief didn't feel real. There were no sobs, no wailing, no shattered hearts. Instead, there were nods and whispered conversations. And beneath it all, there was a strange sense of relief. Relief that the storm had passed. Relief that someone was finally gone. But why did it feel like they were celebrating her death more than mourning it? The streets outside her funeral were dark, slick with rain, as if the city itself were mourning, or hiding something. The voices of those who asked too many questions seemed to fade. Investigators. Journalists. Anyone who dug a little too deep. People who asked too much seemed to vanish into the shadows, their inquiries swallowed by the night. The city had a way of taking care of its secrets, making sure they stayed buried, just out of reach. It didn't matter who you were. If you asked the wrong questions, if you looked too hard, you might just disappear. And Kim Sae-ron had learned that lesson too late. The ones who knew too much often didn't live to tell the story. There were questions that gnawed at the edges of this case. Questions no one seemed able to answer, yet they demanded resolution. Who was the last person to see Kim Sae-ron alive? No one could say for sure. Her friends, her manager, no one could provide a solid answer. Everyone had their own version of the events, but none of them lined up. The truth seemed to slip further away the harder they looked. Then there was the phone call. Kim had called her mother 3 times in the hours before her death. 3 times. But not a single message. Why hadn't she said anything? Why hadn't she left a trace? Her mother, frantic, couldn't understand it. Was it a cry for help? A warning? Or was it something else? A final attempt to reach someone before it was too late? And then there was the laptop. Kim's laptop. The one thing that could have held the key to it all. But it was gone. Vanished. No one knew where it had gone, but it had disappeared the same night she died. What was on it? What had she been working on? Was it the secret that would unravel everything? Or had someone made sure it was erased forever? But the deeper the investigation went, the more strange things happened. People involved in the case started meeting strange fates. Some vanished without a trace. Others retracted their statements, as if someone had threatened them into silence. Every new clue uncovered only seemed to raise more questions. The pressure mounted. The urgency to uncover the truth was unbearable. Every lead seemed to go cold, every path seemed to circle back to the same terrifying possibility. There was something here, something dark, something that someone was willing to kill to keep buried. And Kim Sae-ron in the end had been the key. But why? What was the secret she was about to reveal, and who would stop at nothing to ensure it stayed hidden? Kim Sae-ron's life was never really her own. The moment she stepped into the spotlight, her every move became someone else's business. The contracts, the deals, the constant push to stay relevant, it was all consuming. She wasn't just an actress, she was a product. A commodity. And every decision, every mistake, every victory had to fit into the narrative others wanted to sell. Behind the glossy images, behind the fame, there was a constant pressure. The pressure to be perfect, to always be on, to never falter. Her every action was scrutinized, every word twisted, every appearance dissected by the public. And when she stumbled, when she made a mistake, it wasn't just a personal failure. It was a public spectacle. A scandal that would follow her like a shadow, no matter how much she tried to outrun it. The guilt ate at her. The constant feeling that she wasn't enough. She fought with self-doubt, questioning her worth, questioning if anyone would care about her if she disappeared. The fear of being forgotten haunted her more than anything. She had made a name for herself, but how long would it last? How long until she was just another face in the crowd, another actress whose story no one cared to remember? And then there were the industry figures. The ones who controlled her fate. Powerful, ruthless, ready to discard her at the first sign of weakness. They were the ones who made the decisions, who decided when she worked, when she appeared, when she was seen, and when she was silenced. They didn't care about her struggles. They only cared about the bottom line. Kim was trapped in a life that wasn't her own. The weight of expectation, the constant pressure to perform, to be perfect, it had taken its toll. She wasn't just battling the world outside, she was battling herself. Battling the fear that no matter what she did, it would never be enough. And somewhere deep inside, she knew the cost of living in the public eye was more than she could bear.